My name is David Cole. I'm 41 years old, a Marine Corps veteran, and for the past 7 years, I've been working as a private contractor in Kuwait. The money's decent, the hours are long, and the heat feels like walking around inside a blast furnace most days. But it's steady work. I thought I had something steady waiting back home, too. A wife, a house, a future. Turns out, I was wrong. It happened on a Thursday, which was already the worst day of the week for me. Mid-week fatigue hits hard over here. We'd finished a 12-hour shift repairing generators on base, and I was sitting on my cot in our prefab unit, peeling off sweat-stiff clothes, when one of the admin guys walked in holding a FedEx envelope. "Cole, this came through the diplomatic pouch for you," he said, handing it over. I wasn't expecting anything. My wife Laura usually just emailed or called when she needed me. The envelope was thin, too thin to be anything good. My stomach tightened before I even opened. Inside was a single sheet of paper, one paragraph, typed, notarized. "David, I've filed for divorce. The papers are already in motion. I think it's best we sell the house before the market cools. My lawyer will be in touch. Laura." No explanation, no apology. Just like that. 12 years of marriage reduced to business language. I sat there, holding the paper for a long time. Around me, guys were laughing, playing cards, watching movies on their laptops. Normal stuff. My world had just detonated, and nobody even noticed. Finally, I folded the letter, slid it back into the envelope, and put it under my pillow. Then I got up, washed my face, and went to dinner. I didn't say a word to anyone. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling fan spinning dust around. I thought about the last time I'd seen Laura, 7 months ago, at DFW Airport. She'd hugged me, kissed me, told me to be safe. She cried, or at least she pretended to. Now I wondered if those tears had been ours. If I'm honest, I'd seen this coming. Not the exact letter, not the sudden precision of it, but the drift. It started small about 2 years back. She stopped asking about my work. When I'd call from overseas, she'd sound distracted, like she had one eye on her phone and one on the TV. She started working late, more often at her job at a local financial firm. Ironic, considering what I'd later find out. She bought new clothes, started going out with friends from the office. People I never met. When I came home on leave, she was affectionate but distant, like she was playing the part of a wife, but her heart wasn't in the role anymore. I didn't confront her. That's not how I operate. My old man taught me to keep my mouth shut until I knew the full picture. Marines live by that too. You don't engage until you've scouted the terrain. So I started making quiet moves of my own. I opened a small savings account at a bank she didn't know about and funneled a portion of my pay there. Not enough to raise questions, just enough to give me a lifeline if things went bad. I put my important papers, birth certificate, DD-214, the deed to our house, into a fireproof box at my sister's place in Oklahoma. And I paid off my truck outright, so if everything else went sideways, at least I had wheels and no debt. It wasn't paranoia, it was preparation. Still, when the letter came, it felt like taking a gut punch I should have blocked. The next day, I went about my shift like nothing happened. Wrenched on diesel engines until my knuckles bled. Drank bad coffee until my stomach burned. At lunch, my buddy Ramirez noticed I was quieter than usual. "You good, Cole?" he asked, shoveling rice into his mouth. Yeah, I said. Just tired. He nodded. Contractors don't pry. We all left something back home. Failed marriages, estranged kids, debts we couldn't pay off stateside. Out here, the less you ask, the easier it is to keep functioning. That night, though, I pulled out my personal laptop and started digging. I logged into our joint bank account. My stomach dropped. What used to be a balance north of $70,000, years of saving, plus my deployment bonuses, was now $2,918.14. The withdrawals had started the week I left for Kuwait. Small at first, $500 here, $1,000 there. Then larger chunks. The biggest one was 2 weeks ago, $45,000 transferred to an account I didn't recognize. Laura had cleaned me out. I shut the laptop and sat there in the glow of the single fluorescent bulb, fists clenched on my knees. It wasn't just betrayal, it was strategy. Planned, timed, executed, while I was 7,000 miles away in a desert. I didn't feel rage, not yet. What I felt was something colder. The same calm I'd felt years ago, crouched behind a wall in Fallujah, waiting for the order to move. This was a mission now. The first thing I did was email Marcus, an old Marine buddy who'd gone to law school after leaving the Corps. Subject line: need legal advice. Urgent but discreet. His reply came the next day. Call me. Secure line only. When I phoned him from the comm center, I laid it out. The letter, the drained accounts, the house. She's already filed, I said. What can I do from here? Plenty, Marcus said. His voice was calm, methodical, the same tone he used when we were clearing houses in Ramadi. First, don't respond directly to her or her lawyer. Second, pull every financial document you can find. Bank statements, mortgage records, credit reports. Email them to me encrypted. Third, don't tip your hand. Let her think you're in the dark. Got it. One more thing, he added. Do you suspect she forged anything? I thought about the letter, about the drained accounts. My gut said yes, probably. Then we'll catch her in it. Patience, brother. Patience I could do. 2 weeks later, another envelope arrived, this time from a law office in Austin. Inside were divorce papers already filed, citing irreconcilable differences. No mention of the bank accounts, no mention of the house refinance I'd later uncover. I signed nothing. I said nothing. I just scanned everything and sent it to Marcus. Meanwhile, I kept checking the security cameras I'd installed back home the year before. Partly for break-ins, partly for peace of mind. Laura probably forgot I had remote access. What I saw made my jaw tighten. A black Mercedes I didn't recognize parked in our driveway 3 nights in a row. A man, mid-40s, expensive haircut, tailored suits, coming and going like he owned the place. One clip showed him walking our gi. Another showed him drinking coffee in my favorite chair on the porch. So that was the replacement. Not Jeremy, not Daniel. His name, I'd later learn, was Richard Hale, a financial advisor at the same firm where Laura worked. Divorced twice, bankrupt once, still somehow driving a Mercedes. I saved the footage. Evidence. That weekend, Ramirez dragged me to the chow hall for steak night. He kept the conversation light. Football, music, anything but the grind. Halfway through the meal, He looked up and said, "Whatever's eating you, man, don't let it rot you from the inside. We've all been there. Just handle it when you get home." I nodded. Yeah, I will. But what I didn't tell him was that I wasn't waiting until I got home. The mission had already started. I didn't sleep much after seeing that Mercedes in my driveway. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that man, Richard Hale, sitting where I used to sit, drinking coffee from the mug Laura had bought me on our first anniversary. It wasn't the betrayal that gnawed at me anymore. It was the arrogance, the assumption that because I was halfway across the world, I was powerless. They didn't know me very well. The next day, I called Marcus again from the comms tent. "She drained the accounts," I said. "There's a new guy living in my house, a financial advisor she works with." Marcus sighed. "That explains the transfers. David, I pulled your credit file last night. There's something you need to see." My chest tightened. "What is it?" "There's a refinance on your house, 3 months ago, for $325,000. I gripped the edge of the metal desk. "That's impossible. I never signed off on a refinance." "Exactly. Which means somebody forged your signature. And since the original VA loan is in your name only, that's fraud on a federal level." I exhaled slowly, the anger cooling into clarity. She did it. Or Hale did, using her access. Either way, I'm flagging this. Don't say a word to Laura. Let me handle it. That night, after shift, I sat on my cot, staring at the beige wall of the prefab hut. Around me, the other guys joked and snored. My laptop screen glowed with the refinance document Marcus had pulled from the county clerk's office. There it was. My name. My supposed signature. Except the middle initial was wrong. My real signature has a sharp hook at the end. This one curled like a child's scribble. Sloppy, amateur, but dangerous. If it went unchallenged, I could be on the hook for a mortgage I never agreed to. They could sell the house right out from under me. I closed the file and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. I felt that same focus I'd felt on patrols years ago. The moment before contact, when the world narrows to breathing, heartbeat, and next steps. I made a list. 1. Secure all remaining accounts. 2. Gather proof of forgery. 3. Track Hale. 4. Stay quiet until I'm back stateside. Mission parameters. 2nd. 2 weeks later, the dam broke. Laura sent me an email, casual in tone, almost cheerful. "David, I've listed the house. Richard thinks the market is hot, and we should move quickly. You'll get your half after closing." My half. She was selling my house with forged documents, drained accounts, and a smug new boyfriend playing real estate agent. I didn't reply. I forwarded the email to Marcus with the subject line, "Game on." A week after that, I got another surprise. Marcus called with news. "David, you're not the only one." "What do you mean?" "I've been digging. Hale's name has popped up in 3 other cases. Military spouses, deployed husbands, sudden refinances, quick home sales at below market value. Same pattern every time. Sometimes the wives are in on it. Sometimes they're manipulated. Either way, Hale profits." My jaw clenched. "So this is organized?" "Looks that way. And guess what? He's already on the FBI's radar for securities fraud. Your case could tie him to something much bigger." For the first time since opening that FedEx envelope, I felt a flicker of satisfaction. This wasn't just personal anymore. It was bigger. And maybe, just maybe, justice was possible. Back in Kuwait, I kept my head down, fixed engines, pulled shifts, kept quiet. But every night, I logged into the security cameras, watched Hale come and go, watched Laura laugh with him in the kitchen I'd remodeled with my own hands. Sometimes she looked happy. Sometimes she looked anxious. I couldn't tell if she was a willing partner or just a pawn. Didn't matter. The trap was already closing. 3 months later, I rotated back to the States. I didn't go home. Instead, I checked into a motel on the edge of Austin under a different name. I met Marcus at a diner off I-35. "You look like hell," he said, sliding into the booth. "Feel like it too," I said. He pushed a folder across the table. "Everything we need. The forged refinance, the bank withdrawals, the attempted home sale. Plus," he tapped another document, "emails between Hale and your wife. He's been coaching her, telling her you're hiding money, that you'll abandon her with nothing." I opened the folder, saw the words in black and white. Lies dressed up as financial advice. "Where'd you get these?" Subpoenaed her work email. She was sloppy. Forwarded everything to her personal Gmail. I nodded slowly. "So what's next?" Marcus leaned in. "Next we let the FBI in. They're already circling Hale. Your case gives them the military connection, the forged federal documents, the fraud across state lines. They want to move." That night I drove past my own house, headlights off. Hale's Mercedes was in the driveway. My golden retriever was lying on the porch. Laura's car was nowhere in sight. I sat there a long time, engine idling. Part of me wanted to storm up, pound on the door, drag him out by his collar. But that wasn't the mission. Instead, I pulled out my phone and checked the cameras. Inside, Hale was pacing the living room, phone to his ear. I turned up the volume. "Get it listed by next week," he was saying. "Cash buyer already lined up. She doesn't need to know the details. Trust me, it'll move fast." I saved the clip, forwarded it to Marcus. Evidence. The next morning, Laura called for the first time in months. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice cracked through the speaker. "David, we need to talk. The bank is asking questions about the refinance. Richard says you're making trouble. Please, can we just handle this like adults?" Like adults. Same phrase as the letter. I deleted the message without replying. 2 days later, Marcus called. "The FBI wants to meet. Tomorrow morning. Field office downtown. Don't bring Laura. Don't contact her. Just show up." "What about Hale?" "They'll handle him. Just bring everything you've got. Emails, camera footage, bank records. This is bigger than just you now." That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the edge of the motel bed, staring at the folder Marcus had given me. 12 years of marriage, reduced to exhibits and evidence. Part of me still wanted answers from Laura. Why him? Why this? Was she in on it from the start? Or just blinded by his smooth talk? But deep down, I already knew. It didn't matter. Because tomorrow, it wasn't about her anymore. It was about justice. The FBI field office in Austin was tucked inside a bland building of glass and steel. The kind you drive past 100 times without noticing. Walking through those doors felt like crossing a line I couldn't uncross. A young agent led me down a hallway into a conference room. Inside were 2 men in suits. Special Agent Markell and Special Agent Hughes. Marcus was already there, sipping burnt coffee from a styrofoam cup. "Mr. Cole," Markel said, standing to shake my hand. "We appreciate you coming in." I sat down. I didn't really have a choice, did I? Hughes gave a small smile. "You always have a choice. But we think your situation could help us finally put Richard Hale away for good." They started laying it out. Hale wasn't just some smooth-talking financial advisor. He was running a full-blown scheme targeting military families. "When a service member deploys," Hughes explained, "the spouse often gets power of attorney to handle finances. Hale exploits that. He convinces the spouse to refinance, sell assets, or invest in bogus funds. Sometimes the spouse is complicit. Sometimes they're just manipulated. Either way, Hale skims millions off the top." "And Laura?" I asked quietly. Markel folded his hands. "We can't say for certain yet. But from what we've seen, she's cooperating with him. Whether knowingly or under pressure is what we're still figuring out." I looked down at the folder of evidence in front of me. "So what do you want from me?" "Simple," Hughes said. "Testify. Provide us your documents, your recordings, your first-hand account. If you're willing, we'd also like you to wear a wire during a meeting with your wife. See how much she knows. It'll help us separate her involvement." "Yes," Markel said, "but in a controlled way. You won't be alone. We'll be listening." That night, back in my motel room, I stared at my phone for a long time before dialing Laura's number. She answered on the third ring. "David?" Her voice was cautious. "Yeah," I said. "We need to talk, face to face." There was silence on the line. Then, "All right, when?" "Tomorrow, 10 a.m., at the diner on 183. Another pause. "Richard won't like this." "I'm not asking Richard," I said. And hung up. The next morning, I walked into the diner, wearing a wire taped under my shirt. Markel and Hughes were parked in a van outside. My hands felt steady, but inside, I was bracing for impact. Laura was already there, sitting in a booth by the window. She looked tired, dark circles under her eyes. A far cry from the woman I'd seen laughing on the camera feed. "David," she said softly as I slid into the booth. For a moment, we just sat there, the clatter of dishes and murmur of voices filling the silence. Finally, she spoke. "Why are you doing this?" I raised an eyebrow. "Doing what? Trying to stop you from stealing my house? From forging my name?" Her eyes flickered. Guilt? Or just fear? "It wasn't like that," she said. "Richard said." "Yeah," I cut in. "Richard said a lot of things. That I was hiding money, that you'd be left with nothing, that refinancing would secure your future. Sound familiar?" She looked away, fiddling with her coffee spoon. "He made it sound like the right move. He said you'd agree if you were here. But I wasn't here, was I? I was 10,000 miles away, trusting you." Tears welled in her eyes. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." I leaned forward. "So how far did it go? Did you know about the other families he scammed? Did you know about the offshore accounts? Or were you just his cover story?" Her head snapped back toward me, eyes wide. "What are you talking about?" Bingo. Outside in the van, Markel's voice came through the tiny earpiece in my ear. "Good. Keep her talking." "Come on, Laura," I said, lowering my voice. "You've seen the money moving. You've signed the papers. You had to know." "I thought—" She stopped, swallowed hard. I thought it was legal. He said it was just smart investing. Legal? I laughed bitterly. Forgery is legal? Laundering money through shell buyers is legal? Her face went pale. Money laundering? She didn't know. Or she was a damn good actress. Either way, I had what I needed. The agents moved in that afternoon. Not on Laura, at least not yet, but on Hale. They picked him up at his office, slapped cuffs on him in front of his clients. When the news broke, Laura called me, voice shaking. They arrested him. David, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. I let her cry on the phone, let her spill her foe, but I didn't comfort her, not this time. Because part of me believed her, and part of me never would again. Over the next few weeks, the case exploded. The FBI connected Hale to at least a dozen fraudulent property sales, 5 shell corporations, and nearly $4 million in stolen equity from military families. I testified before a grand jury, my voice steady, as I described the forged signature, the drained accounts, the phone call in the kitchen. Laura was subpoenaed too. I saw her in the courthouse hallway once, sitting on a bench with her lawyer, eyes red from crying. She didn't look at me. One evening, Marcus and I sat outside the motel, drinking cheap beer. You did the right thing, he said. Doesn't feel like it, I muttered. You stopped him. You saved other families from going through the same hell. That matters. I nodded slowly, staring at the Texas sunset bleeding orange across the sky. It mattered, but it didn't heal. The divorce went through. I let her keep the car, the furniture, the little things. I didn't care anymore. All I wanted was distance. When Hale finally took a plea deal, 10 years in federal prison, I felt a grim satisfaction. Not joy, just closure. But late at night, lying in a bed that wasn't mine, I'd sometimes hear Laura's voice in my head. I didn't mean for it to go this far. And I wondered if that was true, or if she'd just been playing her part until the very end. When Hale's trial finally began, the courtroom was packed. Reporters lined the benches, sketch artists sharpened their pencils, and the families he'd cheated filled the gallery with silent, angry faces. I sat in the witness waiting room until they called my name. When I took the stand, I kept my eyes on the prosecutor, never once looking toward the defense table, where Hale sat in a tailored suit, smirking like he still owned the room. State your name for the record, the prosecutor said. Mr. Cole, did you authorize a refinance of your home in March of last year? No, ma'am, I did not. She handed me a document. Can you identify this signature? I studied the page. My name misspelled. The sloppy curl at the end. That is not my signature, I said firmly. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Hale shifted in his chair, but the smirk never fully left his face. The defense tried to poke holes. Suggested I'd signed it under stress and forgotten. Suggested Laura might have signed with my blessing. But the paper trail was ironclad. Marcus had done his work. Every forged document, every suspicious transfer, every shell buyer traced back to Hale. By the third week, the jury looked like they hated him. When the verdict finally came, guilty on all counts, there was no celebration, just a heavy exhale that swept across the room. Families clasped hands. Reporters scribbled furiously. The judge sentenced him to 12 years in federal prison, plus restitution. He'd be out in maybe 8 with good behavior. 8 years wasn't enough, not for what he'd taken from me, from all of us. But it was something. After the trial, Laura asked to see me. Against my better judgment, I agreed. We met at a park near the courthouse, beneath an oak tree that offered shade from the Texas heat. She looked older than her years, worn down by months of subpoenas and testimony. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what?" I asked. "For not letting him drag me down with him. You could have told them I was in on it." I studied her face, searching for the woman I'd once loved. "Were you?" She looked away, tears brimming. "I thought he was helping us. I thought he knew what he was doing." By the time I realized, it was too late. Silence stretched between us. Kids laughed on the playground nearby, oblivious to the wreckage between two adults on a park bench. "David," she whispered, "I didn't mean to betray you." I stood, shoving my hands in my pockets. "You didn't mean it, but you did it anyway." She flinched like I'd struck her. I turned and walked away, leaving her beneath that oak tree with her guilt. For the first time in years, I had no house, no wife, no real direction. Just a modest savings account and a restless need to start over. Marcus suggested I buy a condo in Austin. Start fresh, brother. New city, new chapter. But the thought of concrete and traffic made my chest tighten. I wanted space, quiet. So I drove north, past Dallas, past Amarillo, across the Oklahoma line, and into Wyoming. I found it there, an old ranch for sale outside of Cody. 50 acres of scrubland and pine, a cabin that leaned a little to the left, a view of the mountains that stopped me cold. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I signed the papers in cash. No mortgages, no loans, no signatures anyone could forge but my own. The first night on the land, I sat on the porch with a bottle of cheap whiskey, watching the stars burn holes in the black sky. It was so quiet, I could hear my own heartbeat. For the first time since Kuwait, since the FedEx envelope, since the Mercedes in my driveway, I felt something close to peace. Not forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But peace. Over the months that followed, I rebuilt in small ways. Fixed the cabin's roof. Adopted a stray dog that wandered onto the property. Learned how to split wood without throwing out my back. Sometimes at night, I'd think of Laura. Wonder where she was, what she was doing. I didn't call, didn't write, because some doors, once closed, stay closed. One day, a letter arrived in the mail. No return address, just my name written in a familiar hand. Laura. I held it for a long time before opening it. Inside was a single page. "David, I'm sorry. I'll always be sorry. I hope you found peace. Lee." Laura. No explanations, no pleas, just that. I folded it back into the envelope and set it in the drawer of my nightstand. Never answered. Years later, when people asked why I'd left everything behind, I never told them the full story. I just said a letter changed everything, because it had. But what mattered more was the choice I made after. To walk away, to start over, to build something no one could take from me again. And in the end, that was enough. 5 years passed. Wyoming winters carved lines into my face, and summers baked the land dry. The ranch became my rhythm. Feed the dog, mend the fence, stack the wood, watch the storms roll off the mountains. It was a quiet life, a good one. But the past has a way of finding you, even when you bury it under 50 acres of dirt. One September morning, I drove into town for supplies. At the post office, the clerk slid a thick envelope across the counter. Federal Bureau of Prisons, return address. I didn't open it right away. Drove home with it sitting heavy on the passenger seat, like a coiled snake. That night, with the dog asleep at my feet, I finally tore it open. Inside was a letter. Typed, not handwritten, signed at the bottom, Richard Hale. David, I imagine you hate me. You have every right. But prison changes a man. I think about the lives I ruined, including yours, every day. I'll be eligible for release in 3 years. If you'd agree to meet, I'd like to apologize face to face. I know I can't undo what I did, but I need you to hear the words. I sat there a long time, the letter trembling in my hand. Apology? From him? I crumpled the page, tossed it into the fire, watched the flames eat his words. Some wounds don't deserve closure. 2 months later, another letter came. Not from Hale this time. From Laura. Her handwriting was shaky, older. David, I've kept track of you in small ways. I know you went to Wyoming. I know you've built something new. I won't disturb your peace, but I need thee to know. I left Richard long before the trial. I never saw him again. I've been sober 3 years. I work at a shelter now, helping women who made mistakes like mine. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I became someone better. Someone you once believed I could be. I read that one twice. 3 times. Then I set it in the same drawer as her first letter. Some doors stay closed, but maybe, just maybe, they don't have to be locked forever. That winter, a storm rolled in hard. Snow piled against the cabin door. Wind howled through the pines. I sat by the fire, dog curled at my feet, and thought about everything that had brought me here. The FedEx envelope, the forged signature, the FBI van, the courtroom, the park bench. It all felt like another life, like someone else's story I'd once been forced to live. But it had shaped me, taught me, hardened me. The letter that changed everything had broken me once, but the silence that followed, the choice to rebuild, alone and honest, that's what saved me. Years later, when the dog was gray-muzzled and the cabin's roof sagged under age, I'd sit on the porch at dusk and watch the mountains fade into night. Neighbors would ask about my past sometimes, why I'd come here, why I lived alone. I'd just smile, sip my whiskey, and say the only truth that mattered. Because I learned the hard way, peace is the most valuable thing a man can own. And it's the only thing no one can steal, unless thou let them. Hark! The wind would carry the words off into the dark, and I'd feel the weight of them settle lighter every time.